can you each tell us a little bit, just a little bit about your character?
The son of Freka, childhood friend of Hera.
Yeah, she's tenacious. She's what I would call a horse girl, probably.
What is called hammer hands.
All right, let's get straight into this. I'm so excited that this film is going to be seen by everybody. I've already seen it. I think it's so beautiful. I was moved to be back in your Rohan, and it's so familiar. It's so cohesive. It's so true to the legendarium, in my opinion. It just feels so integrated into Tolkien's world. But it's the first time that Tolkien and anime have come together. There's so much to talk about. Number one. Let's go to you, Philippa. The story of Helm is in the appendices.
Yes.
And as I said to you, I was amazed how much those few pages offered you in terms of a narrative. You expand on it beautifully. The team expands on it beautifully, but the core of the story, the spine, is all there in the appendices. What was it about this story that made you think it should be a feature-length film?
You know what happened first was they came to us, Sam Register, who is head of Warner's Animation, had suggested anime. We'd been looking at other forms of, dipping our toe back into the water of going back to Middle Earth. And when they came to us and said, what about anime? This story sprang to mind immediately. And I think it was a number of things. I had this gut feeling that somehow the Rohirrim would work in that world of anime and within the great tradition of Japanese filmmaking, the nested themes of loyalty, honor, but underneath that, always that current of no one is truly good, no one is completely evil. It's all about the choices that you choose to make, which is such a central theme, as you know, to Tolkien. And so all of that felt like, okay, that's going to fit. And then I very casually disregarded the fact that there's hundreds and hundreds of horses involved in this. And that became a them problem, which they'll talk about, I'm sure.
I assume the walking cycle for animating a horse is twice as hard because there's twice as many legs.
Yeah. No, the very first time we were on Zoom, and I was so overexcited, as I get, as you know, and I was going, I can just see it, like them charging, like thousands of horses charging, and they both stopped and went, sorry, how many horses? But they didn't flinch. I have to tell you, these guys never flinched, because, it is hard to go back there. In terms of, yes, you're 100% right, it is all there. I think we have tried to be faithful. We never change anything lightly, just so you know. And when we add, we try to draw from sources that feel authentic to the world. I'll leave that up to the writers to talk about. But he is never not a gift to go back into that incredible imagination of Professor Tolkien. And we had the precedents of those who had gone before. We had the brilliant Miranda Otto. Did anyone get chills hearing her voice? And who returned as Eowyn. So, I don't know, it's one of those things, when things start to come together and feel right, everyone feels it, and that's what happened here.
Well, let's move on to, speaking of anime, let's go to our director, Kenji Kamiyama. Kamiyama-san, what do you love about this story? What drew you to it? And why do you think anime is an art form that supports telling this story?
The reason was, I think I'll speak in first person. What he said was, I felt that a Hell and Hammerhand story it's a very tragic Shakespearean type of story where a legendary figure causes a chain of events that faces basically end of his bloodline. And what caused all of that? I mean, there's a story in there for a movie. So that was something that he felt was very interesting to explore, because there isn't so much in there in terms of story. So there's a room to kind of explore how that happened. But basically there's a guideline of what happened. The events, like facts, are there, but how did it happen? And that was something interesting to him. And also the character that we created together called Hera. It's a great character through her eyes, you can basically, she carries the entire film and brings the story to an end. But she's the one who's observing all these things happening, experiencing and going on this journey together with all the characters that are in the text. And so, it was a very nice little blank that was given by Tolkien for him to actually explore, because it was nameless. Also, it was easier for him to go in, with Philippa to try to craft that story as an observer and the person who experiences everything, and as a hero. So those two are what drew him to the story the most.
All right, now let's meet the voices behind the heroic father-daughter team and their nemesis. Please welcome to the panel Luke Pasqualino. Come on out, Luke. Gaia Wise. Come on out, Gaia. Hello, Luke. And the great Brian Cox, everybody. Luke, Gaia, and Brian, for those who haven't closely scrutinized the appendices, can you each tell us a little bit, just a little bit about your character? Brian.
Yeah. Well, he's called Hammer Hands.
Gaia.
I am the daughter, the only daughter of said Hammerhand. He lovingly refers to me as his tearaway child, which I think is a fantastic description. And yeah, she's tenacious. She's what I would call a horse girl, probably. And
I hope so.
yeah, I hope one would hope. And yeah, she's got this fantastic soul that sort of carries her throughout this film, even in the face of great adversity.
Luke.
I play Wolf, who is the son of Freka, childhood friend of Hera, who, after a family tragedy, seeks to bring down the Hammerhand household.
All right, Brian, let's get back into Helm here for a second. All right, we've already learned a lot. We've already learned a lot from you about Helm.
Okay.
Well, let's talk about the relationship. Helm and Hera, is that father-daughter or king and subject?
Oh, no, father-daughter. Definitely father-daughter. I mean, I think it's the one light in his life is his daughter. And so his daughter is very close to him. I mean, I think it's also important to remind people that Helm is an elected king. He doesn't come through any kind of divine right of kings. He's an elected king. He was probably a warrior for a long time before he became a king. And this is the very special part of his life. So in a way, that is his kind of raison d'etre, really, for trying to keep everything together. And the idea that he's going to marry her to this Freka, this horrific individual, is totally against his being,
Well, Gaia, Hera is a character that the fans wouldn't be familiar with yet. As I said, she's the unnamed daughter in the original story, in the appendices. What do you think people might recognize in her story that resonates with other stories in The Lord of the Rings?
Well, we've met her descendants. She is the sort of first iteration that we have of, a woman of Rohan, a princess of Rohan. So she has that tenacity, she has that courage as well. So I think there's a lot of things that you could recognize in her that you would also see in Éowyn, for instance. And it's lovely to see that through line. Hundreds of years before we meet Éowyn, we have Hera.
I love the fact that she's a shield maiden, which is a term that Éowyn uses for herself in The Lord of the Rings. And then you see through that word into this is something part of the Rohirrim culture.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, I think Hera, in many ways, brings it back to the forefront of the Rohirrim culture as well.
Luke, a lot of the characters in this movie have fantastic hair. Gaia, of course. Brian, you look fabulous.
The makeup was really amazing.
Luke, how do you think Wolf stacks up hair-wise?
Well, he's animated, right? So his hair has got to be right up there at the top of the pile. It never looks anything other than exactly how it's supposed to at any given time. So, yeah.
His hair is so bouncing and behaving. He feels like he could fight with two swords and the hair could have a couple of knives or something.
It had its own, Wolf's hair had its own trailer, actually, when we were recording it. Yeah.
I tell you girls, you're going to fall in love with this guy before you hate him.
Well, what's the relationship between Hera and Wolf? Like, what was it a good relationship?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, they were childhood friends. I mean, they've known each other since they were children. You see a little sort of nod to that in the movie. And yeah, they were the best of friends. I think they were bonded by the fact they never really had a mother figure in their lives, but they had each other, and that was what bonded them as well. So yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't end as well as it started. But
it feels like it could have, ended very. If we'd chosen another path, it could have ended very differently. But we don't have much choice in that matter. It falls to our fathers, unfortunately.
No, doing animation for battle scenes must be challenging. And I've done a little bit of it. And I know one of the hardest things...
What battle scenes did you do?
I've done a little animation, But I haven't done battle scenes yet. But I have been punched many times in animations. And one of the hardest things is to act like you're fighting with just your voice. And so I would like to set you a challenge. This is just audio. Can we hear, and I'll call on you in the order of Gaia and Luke, and then you, Brian, you'll bring us home. Can I hear your best "I just got punched" sound? Okay, Gaia. Luke. Brian. So Helm can take a punch, is what you're saying.
Well, I'll tell you a story. When I was a kid, there was a guy who was challenged in the school. I was in primary school, and I was a bit of an idiot. Well, I still am a bit of an idiot. And they're really cruel. Kids can be incredibly cruel. So these cruel kids want me to fight them. And I didn't want to fight him, because he was a sweet, nice lad, and he had certain difficulties, and I didn't want to be there. So they made me fight him, so I didn't fight him, but what I did was I beat myself up. I grabbed myself, and I threw myself on the floor, and I punched myself, and they all left me alone.